This is the Žižek Dictionary entry for Objet, petit, or Sublime Object by Christopher W. Haley. Žižek's philosophical project is grounded in a reading of Lacanian psychoanalytical theory through the lens of German idealism and Marxism. Žižek's central aim is to uncover repressive social structures and ideological formations in late modern capitalism to effect an emancipatory political program, which he characterizes as neo-communist. Consequently, Žižek lifts central Lacanian concepts out of their clinical application to treat the psychopathology of individual analysans, and broadens their explanatory possibilities to uncover the logics of power and domination in the socio-symbolic field that undermine the subject's experience of freedom and political imagination. To this end, Žižek extrapolates from Lacan's notion of objet petit, a central concept in Lacan's psychoanalytic theory of the subject. Two established glosses of the objet are the object cause of desire and the unobtainable object of desire. The ambiguity between these two meanings, like most of Lacan's teachings, is both deliberate and provocative. In the first gloss, the objet as the cause of desire reverses the common sense logic of desire and the object, in which desires are logically prior to the objects we pursue. We think our desire wells up from impulses grounded in reason, nature, or God, some sort of truth of our self-expression, and fixates on objects we thus seek to obtain. Lacan argues this is backward. The specific objects on which our desires become attached. I want to look good naked. I want to roll in a pimped-out ride. I want to own a beach house in the Cayman Islands. I want to live a righteous life, etc., have been submitted to the subject as that which he ought to desire. This reverse logic is consequently the mechanism by which the subject is inculcated, at the level of the unconscious, into the doxa of the socio-cultural milieu, whether it subjectifies him as a strong Russian, hip-hop aficionado, or bourgeois lover of art. In this way, the objet operates as part and parcel of the demand placed on the subject by the big other. The authoritative power of the big other grounds subjects' beliefs, values, and practices associated with dominant institutions and ideologies. In accordance with the demand of the big other, the objet links the specific objects of desire to the larger life worlds and lifestyles in which they symbolically register, and in which subjects are enculturated. For example, the traditional normative Western ascription of the subject includes positioning in the heterosexual nuclear family, Christian ethos, race and nation, liberal individualism, and consumer capitalism. Nonetheless, the second gloss, objet as the unobtainable object of desire, overturns this common-sense notion of desire in light of a central premise of Lacanian qua Freudian psychoanalytic theory. There is an inherent incongruity between the subject's conscious experience of desire and the real intentionality of desire emanating from the unconscious. In conscious experience, the subject desires extrinsic objects, leading them to procure satisfaction from the object, such as the other, for example, Girls Gone Wild, the thing, Porsche 911, and ethos, to live closer to nature, to find mystical union with God. On the other hand, what we really desire is more desire, the continuation and intensification of our experience of our desires, as the subconscious ground of the human being, or what Lacan terms subject as drive. Nonetheless, even when we get hold of the object, thus satisfying the conscious experience of desire, such fulfillment is transitory, for desire always re-emerges setting in motion the subject's return to seek out a new object, however cooler, more advanced, or desirable it may be. In this sense, our desire for desire conditions our desire for object to be, in effect, unobtainable, which Žižek likens to an absence, lack, or void, or in other words, the quality of objet petit a. Consequently, by integrating both glosses of the objet, the unobtainable object cause of desire, we develop the full explanatory potential of the objet as a foundational concept for a psychoanalytical theory of the subject, which not coincidentally contests the hegemony of the Cartesian liberal theory of the subject as rational, autonomous, and transparent. What we find is the subject operating under two interlocking delusions stemming from unaccounted powers of the unconscious, which becomes rationalized at the level of conscious intentions. First, they experience their desires as their own, thus obscuring the constitutive power of the big other over their conscious life. Second, they experience their desires as directed towards external objects, and thus misrecognize the true scope of their desire for desire. Taken together, the objet is a spring of psychopathology and potential liberation, because it operates as the crucial point of mediation between the subject's desire, the object, and the big other. It is the promised reward of the objet to satisfy desire that ultimately draws the subject to its call, and it is precisely the subject's structure of desire revolving around the objet that operates as the condition of possibility for enculturation that Lacan's heady concept discloses. The unsatisfying return from the subject's desire for object, consequently, enables the phantasmic content of the big other, all the values, norms, ideologies, and practices of social reproduction that define a socio-cultural milieu, to be pulled into conscious reproduction via the subconscious mechanism of desire for desire. As desire for object results in a constant deferral of satisfaction, the void the subject in Promethean fashion struggles to overcome, the stage is set for the big other to supplement or overload the object with connotative effects, which in late modernity, highly visible in commodity marketing, targets the sublime fulfillment completion of self-identity. The bewitching attraction of the object arises from the big other's contingent and phantasmic investment of meaning over and above the manifest denotative and or instrumental value the subject encounters in the object. Žižek's well-known heuristic examples of the objet, Hitchcock's MacGuffin, Kinder Eggs, and the bourgeois subject, exemplify how the inherent void in the object becomes the a priori ground for its interpretation, which the objet functions to fill. The objet is precisely the covert message, or as Žižek describes it, a certain je ne sais quoi embedded in commodities, status markers, the other, and ideologies. In a sense, the subject is tricked into accepting the dictates of the big other, thinking the object will fulfill his desire, thus internalizing the social field. Through his desire, he latches on to the object, only to find symbiosis. His lack mirrors the lack in the object and, rather than fulfillment, the object's yield is the objet, the perennial harvest unable to negate the void that is desire. For Žižek, the crucial therapeutic operation at the socio-symbolic level is for political subjects to recognize how their desires are beholden to the big other via the objet petit a, and thus dissolve their constitutive effects over subjects' desires. The process of integrating unconscious effects into reflexive consideration directly confronts the objet and its ineluctable void. Ultimately, neither God, nor father, nor nation, nor class dictates the terms of how the subject is called into being. For Žižek, the objet betrays an existential logic, undermining the big other by piercing the veil of the real, pointing towards the foundational void at the ground point of human societies. Our intuition of the real of existence draws our desire towards the freedom and fount of possibilities it holds. Žižek thus uncovers how authoritative modes of interpretation cum ideology, such as myth-making, writing history, exegesis of religious texts, biological explanations of social hierarchies, and so on, displace contingency and obfuscate the void, thus foreclosing unthought possibilities. And it is at this point that Žižek entreats us to begin again.